Hello, America. Dave Hodges here, host of the Common Sense Show. We are the show freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. Thank you so much for joining us. And we hope to make that one enslaved soul at a time. And we serve God, family, country, and we have a special place for the oppressed. We are brought to you by something that can turn your life around. It boosts your immune system to unbelievable levels, cures nothing, but the boost of the immune system is amazing. If you go to iwantmyhealthback.com/Dave Hodges, you can read all about it. 30 clinical studies on this. The nanosoma liquid spray saved me from RSV and strep lung linings with a very negative prognosis. You can benefit from this. iwantmyhealthback.com/Dave Hodges. Now, I interviewed, actually, we interviewed each other. We like to do these joint shows, Sarah Westall and I, and we've done a lot of work together. And you can tell we don't always agree, but we come out being brother and sister. And that's not an exaggeration. We're very good friends. And I really respect her intellect. Wow. She used to be a professor at University of Minnesota, business background. So you're getting the full meal deal. And we talked about a number of things on our very lengthy hour and 20-minute encounter. And so I don't want anyone to sit down and listen that long. I'm going to break it up into segments. And we're going to talk about, well, things that really matter here. And what really matters, AI centers, end days, God, corporations running governments as opposed to governments running corporate or regulating corporations. We're going to hit that because we're looking at a power shift, and I've talked about this. I mentioned that book by Zbigniew Brzezinski in 1970 called The Technotronic Era, Between Two Ages. And we're in that phase. Remember, Brzezinski's one of his themes was when a society goes through a shift in how it's run, they go through about a generation of HE double hockey sticks. And this is where we're at right now. We are going through some real pains, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And Sarah and I are going to hit that aspect of it. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up that portion of the interview, and we will play this for you once I get the parameters set here. And we should be good to go right now. And I think we're already good. I think we're already good. Okay. We are set to go. And you can see Sarah being the effervescent self that she is. Here we go. Hi. Well, okay, AI, and if you look at all the progenitors of AI, what are the original people saying? They're going to take your jobs. And you see different projections, but to say that we're going to lose 90% of our jobs at some year ahead is not an exaggeration. It's a real possibility. And then here's my fear. They say, that's okay. We'll give you universal basic income. Well, when I look at Peter Thiel and he's on a podcast and he can't answer the question, does humanity have a right to survive? And I'm supposed to trust my future to the fact that me being completely helpless is going to be supported by his universal basic income for any length of time? I don't think so. And I think we're setting up. If you look at it, I think we're headed towards the real spiritual crisis, and I think we're moving towards the end days. And I think that this gets into Revelation 13. And I think we're really, well, my pastor says we're headed towards the end days. If I go down this line of thinking, I agree with him. But Sarah, they're taking our job. They're taking our jobs. Okay. And then there's this movie, 1975. And let me mention this here. I've talked about it on my show before, but let me say this here. The movie was called Rollerball. And in the movie, they didn't tell you how it happened, but nations gave way to corporations. And in the movie, six corporations ran the planet. And this was a 1975 movie. This is where we're headed, where corporations will use governments like their administrative arm instead of the government administrating to the corporations about what you pay.
That's true. Corporations are larger than governments now, and they're sovereign organizations almost as much. But I think it's important to separate the infrastructure layer from the AI layer. And that's what I'm trying to say is that you don't need these massive centralized. That's why I brought up the Elon Musk satellite distributed network system, because everything that you talked about with AI can be done in a distributed, well engineered, totally distributed around the world without all the problems that you're pointing to with the data centers. Infrastructure and software are two different conversations. You can make a beautifully engineered data center that is completely distributed. You don't have any water problems. They solve the energy problems. You solve the frequency issues, and you have beautiful infrastructure that harmonizes with the human body and still have your AI problem. That's why I say it's two separate issues.
This is why I like talking to you because you'll go to a different track on the same issue. And see, I think that's important because we're looking at what are the economic motivators? To some degree, what are the spiritual motivators? What are the power motivators? And see, at some point in time, I think there is going to be a collusion and these are going to coalesce together at some point. And there, I think you will find a merging between the infrastructure and the AI at some point in time. I do
Well,
agree with you.
the
Your
infrastructure is
analysis
important.
today, don't you agree, though, it's eventually going to all come together if it's unchecked?
Well, it's already come together. I mean, the infrastructure is important to actually do. I mean, the infrastructure for the internet was absolutely critical in order to have an internet and the communication. It's just that there is a million different ways that you can do it, and so I don't want to point out the what. That's why I don't fight back with some of this stuff because I like the fact that people are pushing back on the engineering issues. I just don't want them to say, once we get the water solved, once we get the electrical stuff solved, once we have these beautiful engineered data centers that harmonize with human bodies and they're perfect, the AI problem is solved. It's not, because it's not a completely separate issue because it's a layer, it's an
It
infrastructure
overlaps.
layer
I agree. I agree with
it
you.
supports it, right? I mean,
Mhm.
how many different homes can you live in? Well, there's all sorts of different things. Or roads, you need roads, but there's so many different ways to engineer it. And you can solve every single problem that humanity has with the infrastructure and still have the AI issues. And I don't think there needs to be AI issues if we do the open source and we actually look at what these algorithms are and we hold their feet to the fire. But we also need to hold their feet to the fire to do good engineering. I mean, what the hell? You don't need to use their water, fix the energy issues, don't have these frequencies hurt people. But that doesn't mean you don't also now still have all these software issues.
Oh, you really have a unique way of looking at that, and I don't disagree with what you're
Because
saying.
that's my background. That's what I
But
did.
but I do think there's going to be a convergence. This I agree with you right now. It's separate. And here's the other thing that concerns me, okay? Even if they're totally benevolent and they develop this technology in the most society friendly way and no one's harmed by it and it improves people's lives, what bothers me is who controls this. If you let it be in the hands of a few, like the oligarchy today, we call them the tech bros, you're inviting abuse because that old saying, power corrupts and absolute power
But
corrupts absolutely.
are you confusing the software and the use, the AI? The software is where the abuse is going to happen if you fix the engineering problems around the data centers. I still want people to push back as hard as they freaking possibly can because you got to solve those problems. But you're not, it's like fiber optics in and of itself isn't a problem. It's what you do on the networks that are the problem.
Hmm. You just hurt my ears with that bomb. Anyway, um,
Why do you say that?
no, the F bomb. Anyway, um, I listen, your rationale is right on point. I agree. But also, too, I think what we're looking at technologically and its societal and personal effects and spin-off effects, it's not static. Things are going to change. And what worries me is how it's going to change. And how much power, for example, are we going to give to AI? How sentient is it going to be? Let me give you an example. China bragged about this the other day. We have autonomous drones. Each one can carry 3 hand grenades, and once we launch them, they're on their own. Isn't that scary?
Yeah, I think having AI make decisions when you have inherently logical flaws and bugs built into the software and they can go down different directions is really scary. As far as it being sentient, I think it's where it gets scary is when you start mixing biological entities, and now you're talking a whole nother.
Oh, did she open up a can of worms? Oh my gosh. Did she open up a can of worms with that? Biological. I offset, I don't believe in the little gray aliens, but if they ever were to come here, and it wasn't part of the great deception that we see in the Bible, how would they deal with us if they weren't benevolent? I don't think it'd be warfare. I think it'd be let's poison them and take over. To me, that's what would be the most efficient way to wage war. But the one thing that I want to just conclude with here for this part, I'm right in that technology is neutral, it's how it's used. Sarah's right in that there is a software issue, and that's where the problems will start. The hardware is okay. It's the software. And we're saying the same thing in different ways, but here's the bottom line. And you have to answer this for yourself. How far are you going to let AI go before you stand up and speak up? Because this doesn't have a good ending, in my opinion, if it's unregulated. And people that have worked in the industry are saying this by the thousands. So I'm going to ask you that question to our audience. How far do we let this go before we say we're going to have to stop it? And then the important question is, how would we stop it? Which is another show for another day. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back in the next segment.